Chapter 1, Lesson 8. Now we're looking at two-way tables, two-way frequency tables, joint frequency tables, relative frequencies, marginal frequencies, all sorts of fun things. Example 1. Yellowstone National Park surveyed a random sample of 1,526 winter visitors to the park. They asked whether each person belonged to an environmental club, like the Sierra Club, and their history with snowmobiles. Here is a list of descriptions of information they found. We need to make a frequency table and a relative frequency table. These are joint frequency and joint relative frequency tables because we have two different variables, whether they had used a snowmobile and whether they were part of an environmental club. So, example 1a, our two options were part of an environmental club or not. Of an environmental club. So that's one of our variables that we measured. And then for the snowmobile use, so this is measuring club membership. Those were our two options. For snowmobile use, we had three options. Either someone had owned a snowmobile, rented a snowmobile, or never used a snowmobile. So now we have enough that we can start putting our chart together. Get some straight lines here, using my straight edge. And I'm leaving a little bit of extra space because we should add some other information that we might want, such as totals. So this way we could also quickly see how many people have owned or rented or never used a snowmobile, also how many people were part of the environmental club and how many were not. And our grand total should be in the bottom right, so that's one of the ways we can check our work. We know that they asked a grand total of 1,526 people. So this is our frequency chart. 445 people said they never used a snowmobile and were not part of a club, so that was 445 in there. 212 had never used a snowmobile but were part of a club. 497 had rented but were not part of the environmental club. 77 had rented and were part of an environmental club. 279 had owned but were not part of the club. And 16 had owned a snowmobile and were part of some sort of environmental club. So we have our inner numbers now. We need to get our marginal totals, and we have our grand total already. So our marginal totals, we're just adding 16 plus 77 plus 212 to find out that a total of 305 people were part of an environmental club. 279 plus 497 plus 445 is 1,221 people who were not part of the club. And if we add that to our 305, we do get a 1526, so that means that all of our numbers there are correct so far, correctly copied and correctly added. People who had owned a snowmobile, total of 295. People who had rented a snowmobile, add those together and you get 574. People who had never used a snowmobile, Altogether 657. And if I add those three together, I should also get 1,526 again. So that's why our grand total is in the bottom right. So that's just the frequency table. So let's take each of those numbers. I'm going to order my numbers in a list particularly. Anytime you need to get rid of the numbers in a list, again, go up to the name, hit clear, and come back down. And I'm going to go across, across, and across. Okay, so that's all of my numbers in list here because part B wanted the relative frequency version of this, which is mostly going to be the same setup. Actually, the setup's the same, just the only thing that's different is instead of raw numbers like this, we are going to have some decimal numbers. And I'm copying it exactly again so that we can compare more directly and use the same order quickly. So again, this is for snowmobile use up here, and club membership. Always need to label your axes and your variables. So we're going to have to take each of the numbers in the chart above and divide by our total. And again, in this class, we will always round to 3 decimal places except for a few special circumstances which have not yet come up. So we can do something similar to last lesson, where now that I've got all these numbers, I can take them all from L1 and divide by 1,526. I also want to round to 3 decimal places, so let's go math, num, round. We're going to take all of L1 over 1,526, comma, and round it to 3 decimal places. So our frequencies are 0.1, 0.01, 0.05, 0.139, 0.200. Not part of an environmental club. 0.183, 0.326, 0.292, 0.800, or just 0.8. We can also add trailing zeros there if we really want to. We don't have to. 0.193 checks out there. 0.376 checks out there. 0.431, 9, 10, 11 checks out there. And if we add those together, we get a total of 1. And that's example 1.